So, and especially if you speak Spanish. Does anybody speak Spanish? Yeah. How do you say tongue in Spanish?
Lengua.
So that's easy one, right? Lingual and lingua. So lingual tonsils, palatine tonsils, and pharyngeal tonsils.
Okay.
These are your
Pharyngeal,
pharynx.
palatine, and lingual.
Got it? Good.
Thank you. Yes.
Let me show you this guy real quick over here. Palate, just if you know those terms, palate is the roof of your mouth. So if it's on the roof of your mouth, it's palatine. If it's on your throat, that's your pharynx, pharyngeal. And if it's on your tongue, it's on your lingua, it's your lingual. What am I doing? All right, so this guy shows a lot of different blood vessels. Here's the trachea, right? You actually see the thyroid and whatever else. But so we see the trachea. Now we're going to see. So the big blood vessel that runs on each side of the trachea is what one again? The common carotid. Don't just say carotid. So if you say, if you want to get the 100, if you want to get that, if you want to get 1 point out of 1, you say left common carotid artery. You got to say all 4 words. I don't know if your teacher will let you say A in a period. I'll let them do that. But you better say common, because the common carotid, that word trunk means that it's going to branch. Common means it's going to branch. So the common carotid branches into the internal, the left internal carotid artery, which goes up and into the brain and contributes to that circle of Willis, or the left external carotid artery, which branches out and goes across your head. And you can feel a branch of that with your temporal pulse, right? Here is the there's an internal jugular and an external jugular, and this is the jugular. Don't know if you need to know all those, but that's the jugular vein, right? Left subclavian vein. These guys unite to form that superior vena cava. The inferior vena cava is not really shown here.
Is it not this one?
That is the hepatic vein. So what you're seeing there,
Oh,
what you're
going
seeing,
back?
yeah. So that's a good point. Let me show you. So here's the spleen, right? And the pancreas. There's no stomach shown here, but you can see a blood vessel. You can see a blue blood vessel leaving the spleen, and a blue blood vessel, probably one of these, leaving the pancreas. And who knows where the gastric one is. But these guys, and then you see more blood vessels coming back like this, right? See these guys? They're all coming from down here in the intestines, and the small intestines have been removed, but they're all converging on this one system, which leads us all back to the liver. So this whole spider web right there of blue is the hepatic portal system. So this is the hepatic portal vein. This red thing is the hepatic artery. So that hepatic artery branched off of this thing, which is the celiac trunk. Celiac trunk branches into the hepatic, the splenic, and the gastric, which is not shown. Probably was over here. But hepatic artery is one of the branches. Both the hepatic artery and the hepatic portal vein go into the liver. Then they leave the liver deoxygenated and processed through this vessel, which is the hepatic vein, which takes you back to the inferior vena cava.
So here we say this the hepatic vein.
No, this
artery.
is the hepatic portal vein.
Portal vein. Oh, portal vein and then hepatic vein. Okay,
Correct.
gotcha.
They are different.
Okay.
So, and again,
Don't
if you
leave
say
the portal at the bottom.
portals below and going to the liver from these organs, right? The vein, the hepatic vein, is from the liver
Going back to that.
to there. Yeah, that's confusing. So, and that one's one of those where you can't, if you just leave off the word portal,
Makes a difference.
you're going to get it wrong if it was at the vein, right?
And it goes into the inferior going up.
It goes to the inferior vena cava, not shown, going back to the heart.
Okay.
Do we ever get a model that has gonads?
The gonadal artery.
Yeah, gonadal artery.
Let's go over here and find out. We'll go down to the next. These two are the gonadal arteries.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so they branch off pretty high, but the gonads, the ovaries, if you're a female, they're like here.
Yeah.
If you're a male, they come down, right? But the artery still needs to supply them, so they start off pretty high and then they branch and head down.
Okay.
So in this model, you can see many of the ones we already covered, right? So this is a branch. This is a branch of the left external carotid, right? Let's go down here though. So here you see that aorta coming right here, right? So the aorta is right here. this guy, where I've got that red one right there. As you can see, it branches to go to the spleen.
Celiac.
This is the celiac, right? That's the celiac trunk. This little nub right there is the second one branching, and if you know your sequence, see that little tiny red button right there?
Anterior,
Anterior
mesenteric.
or superior, whichever term you like. The upper, right? Mesenteric, and it's cut because
It goes forward.
Yeah, it goes and goes out to your intestines. The next one that branches off are these gonadal arteries.
Okay.
On the rat, the next one to branch off was this, which is the inferior or posterior mesenteric, right? These are the gonadals. Here's the branch that forms those two common iliacs. There's the internal iliac, external iliac. Continue down, femoral. You got some down here, anterior tibial. I think posterior tibial artery. There's this big sucker right here called the great saphenous vein.
Okay.
Radial, medial, ulnar arteries, brachial artery, axillary artery, right subclavian artery.
Okay, so this is what splits it.
There's not so much a split as it turns like, the way I describe it is, you know how Lancaster turns into Vision or Green Oaks turns into Carrier, that kind of thing. So this right subclavian means below the clavicle. So the right subclavian here just basically becomes the axillary in the armpit, axillary regions of the armpit, and then it becomes the brachial in the arm, and then it splits into these guys in the lower arm.
Okay.
Here's a nice little anastomosis illustrated there.
Okay.
Do we?
question.
Oh, go ahead.
So this isn't the gastric. This is.
This thing that's cut off right there is probably trying to represent the gastric artery.
Okay.
I would never go, what's that? I'm not going to do that to anybody. But I don't know your teacher might. But basically, you know that this big blood vessel that initially comes off that aorta below the diaphragm is the celiac trunk. This one, you can clearly see the spleen, right? That's the
So
spleen.
what's called the celiac trunk?
Celiac trunk is. I'm feeling like this little. If you feel that it's kind of cut off, like that should be going to somewhere. Like that should be going to the stomach because that stomach would be over here. So the celiac trunk is basically the root of this thing. So basically there's the celiac trunk.
Yeah, it's the one that branches to the tree.
Yeah, comes off, branches to the spleen, branches to the liver.
Gastric.
So splenic artery, hepatic artery, and gastric artery not really shown. Oh, maybe it's this one. I don't know. We wouldn't ask that. Nobody asked that.
Okay. And do we have to know? Sorry, maybe you covered it in class and I was late. What connect or what cells make up? On yesterday's lab, there were questions on what tissue cells make up a certain thing.
Some of them you have to know. For instance, there was the tunics. Maybe there was the tunics of the blood vessels question. They're over here. Let me show you. Follow me. Are you guys rolling the whole time, or are you? It's an action shot. You'll never catch me. So, for instance, this blood vessel model right here. Have you seen this before?
Yes.
So, there's some tissue types that you have to know some tissue types.
Okay.
We learned it all in ANP1, but this layer is called it's either the internal. The tunic is called the tunica intima, right? The tissue type is simple squamous epithelium, right? And the name of this particular thing that lines all the blood vessels is called endothelium. So there's some name problems there where you have tissue type, simple squamous, layer, and tunica intima, lining of the inside of blood vessels, endothelium. And what's this stuff, this red stuff? Which tunic is it?
Media.
Tunica media. What type of cells are they? What kind of tissue is it?
Smooth
Smooth
muscle.
muscle tissue, right? The outside, this adventitia or tunica externa, depends on the blood vessel. It could be elastic connective tissue. It could be dense irregular connective tissue.
Okay.
Which one was the one that was areolar connective tissue?
And again, that's going to depend on the vessel, but you can get veins. Veins will have areolar connective tissue around them.
Or
Most
the veins.
Yeah, most arteries are under a lot of pressure, so they don't have that.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, hopefully